Malcolm.
Janice, welcome.
Welcome to our time.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Janice, how often do you read?
I read often.
Do you?
Quite often.
I read every morning.
Do you?
I sit down and read. I think it's always a good time to read.
I have a friend that puts an hour aside every day to sit and read.
I wish I had that much time.
I do too.
Well, it's book club.
It's book club. Two books.
Yes.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Did it?
It did. And The Bronze Horseman. Both very good books, Malcolm.
Okay. Well, Sue is here with our guest for today to talk about those very books. So we hope you enjoy this episode's version of Book Club. Susie?
Thank you, guys. And yes, welcome everybody to Book Club, one of my favourite times of the year. And I hope that you've perhaps been following us and you know the books that we're talking about today. The first one is the Paulina Simons book, The Bronze Horseman, which is actually a trilogy, and I've read the second one as well. I don't think I got through the third one some time ago, so I've loved revisiting this one. The second one we're going to have a look at is the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I hadn't read. Whoops, that's flaring a bit. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which was made into the film with Jack Nicholson. So we're going to have a look at those with our two of our book readers here today. We have Tash, who is a librarian. Welcome, Tash. Good to have you on board again. And Jill Ireland, who is actually a wine training management person, but she loves reading as well. And I love what you always have lovely contributions to make to our book club.
Oh,
with some insightful things. So the first book that we had to look at was the type of book that one of my favourite genres, that sort of historical romantic novel where it's set in where times are very, very difficult. I love escaping from where we are to a country where things are very, very difficult. And let's face it, this was St. Petersburg before it became Leningrad. A very, very difficult time. Just, what was it, 1941, I think it was set.
I agree with you about the genre, but I hated this book.
Did you?
I hated it.
What was it about it did you didn't like?
Painful. They kept rehashing the same conversations. I just wanted to slap the pair of them.
Did you really?
You know, like, you're going to get together, you're not going to get together, you're going to get over the sister, because the main character is involved with one sister and then he realises it's the other sister that he really wants to be with, but they don't want to break up with the sister because it will break her heart. And so this... I
read a review of somebody saying those very same things, and I looked back on it and wondered the same thing. Before we go on, how did you find the characters? Well, Alexander and Tatiana.
You can like it, it's okay.
Intellectually, I agree with what Tash is saying. But I'm just
You love the love story?
The love story. It was
I do
just
too.
so gorgeous.
Yes.
And,
it was vomitous.
Yeah, it did go on ad nauseum.
Is there such a word? Vomitous? That's a good one. Well, we would be interested. If you've read this book, we would love to get your comments. Maybe you can put them on Facebook and let us know, because it's always good to get other people's concepts. I read the book, I reckon, about maybe 5-6 years ago, and thought what an absolutely beautiful love story.
Did you?
Absolutely loved it, yeah.
No,
I hated it.
That's how I read it.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, this is so
But then
lovely.
I've heard other people who've said that same thing, that they're one-dimensional characters. But I go back to the time...
I didn't think they were one-dimensional. I thought she'd given them a lot of depth and there was a background to each of them and all the rest of it. But it just went on and on and
Yes,
on.
and you got frustrated with the time. And it's not exactly a thin book. It's a book to plough through.
Yep.
But I guess I put that down a little bit to the times. I mean, put yourself in that shoe. You'd be in a
she
place
survived everything as well, didn't she?
what did I
She was the woman who couldn't be killed.
No, she was 17 when she meets Alexander. And by the time she's 18, she has had pneumonia, tuberculosis, buried her sister.
Yes.
She's gone to the front twice.
Gone to the front twice in 1 year. And then by 1943,
buried in rubble.
she's in America.
Yeah, well, that's when he dug her out and rescued her.
So really, when you think about it, she endured, and I mean, it was a terrible time to be alive. And I kept harking back to that, thinking, if I was in her situation and I was going through all of this, I wouldn't be too clear about relationships with the man that I loved as well.
Well,
but I loved
but she was also, I guess, part of it was her family put her at the bottom, you know, like, I mean, she had a twin brother,
Yeah.
and the boy is the most important
That's
person in
right.
the family.
Yeah.
family actually says
They said that to her.
no,
They wish she'd
wish
died.
she'd died instead.
Yeah.
That's right.
And you know, that was the other thing that I enjoyed about the book, was that we had this almighty Hitler war machine coming in and bombarding St. Petersburg, which of course is now Leningrad, bombarding the city, so that the people have to cope with that. But they're also fighting against the Russian, it's not a hierarchy, but that sense that the Russians try and crush the human spirit. You know, it's all for one and one for all, that real communist thing.
Communism.
Yeah.
And so they're battling that. She's battling the fact that her family really think nothing of her. She's just Tatiana, not important.
Yeah.
And I think that, what a time to be living in. And then she goes through all of that and survives it. Gutsy girl. You didn't see it that way.
Completely unbelievable.
Well, maybe a bit unbelievable. Maybe there were some bits where she kind of pushed the boundaries a bit, but
I wanted to like them.
Yeah.
You know, there was at the start, and I thought, oh, this has got potential.
Yeah.
But then it just, you know, kept
Stretched
going
out.
backwards and forwards between him and the sister, and
Yes.
then you've got his mate that he's trying
Dimitri.
to...
Oh,
Dimitri.
he's a horrible character.
He was
a horrible
foul.
character.
But he
Yeah.
was sort of supposed to. You had to have a
Yeah,
villain.
you did.
Yeah.
I have to say, I wanted to know more about Alexander coming from America, because his parents were originally from
Yes,
America,
yeah.
believed in the communist system, so they emigrate to Russia. But then it kind of all went downhill for them
Yes.
after that.
Yes.
The reality
He actually
wasn't
changed his name,
yeah,
didn't
it
he?
wasn't what they expected.
Can we talk about? We're talking about Alexander, and there is a scene there where he part of the frustration, I think, where he becomes very, very aggressive with Tatiana. That time when they actually have a fight, and he pushes her, and he throws a bag at the wall and just misses her head, and it borders on that domestic violence thing of oppression.
But then he was so, anti that violence when her
Yeah.
father.
Yeah.
No one.
I just wanted to-
It's like no one puts baby in a corner, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, exactly. I just wondered whether you felt, whether you saw it as him being just naturally frustrated, and I mean, she covers her face. He says, "Don't you cover your face?" You know, he's quite aggressive.
He was a bit
with
of a
her.
control freak as well.
He probably was, but once again, I think maybe the times and the things, because he was always very tender with her, and it was a beautiful love story, I thought.
It was a bonk fest.
We were talking about it before, and Tash says, I just don't like reading about sex.
Oh,
I'm like,
just, you know, but that was, and Jill said that was all that they did, you know, like that.
Well, there's no television, let's face it.
And I said, don't you remember when you were 17? And that's, sex was kind of very high on the agenda. So
It was.
I think that's what they were in love, and that meant being in love.
I know. And you know,
That's true.
really, she'd lived such a, I don't know how experienced he was, but her life had been so
He
sheltered.
was pretty experienced
So,
from
well,
what
he
they
taught-
said.
he
There were
taught
the
her an awful
girlies
lot.
who were coming to the camp,
Yes.
and then there was his sister, her sister, who you have to assume there'd been
Had a
some sort of
relationship
relationship with. But yeah, there wasn't much about it that I liked, that particular book.
No.
So when you say there's a trilogy,
No, well, I have to admit that Tatiana ends up in America by 1943, so that she's 19.
yeah.
She escapes from war-torn Russia to America and gives birth to a baby boy, and she calls him Alexander,
Yeah.
of course. And I can't remember much, because somehow or other the power of the novel that you didn't get, the power of the novel that I felt was because it was in this war-torn environment. This beautiful city of St. Petersburg that was destroyed by the Germans. Plus, you had the Russians coming in and crushing the human spirit of their own people. And I found all that very interesting. But by the time she got to America and she had to set up a new life, and once again her gutsy spirit came through with a little boy, and then the Alexander comes looking for her. It was, but the third one, no, I'd lost it. I don't think she maintained that narrative through the three novels.
Well, I'm yet to attempt the second.
The second one,
the
yeah, I
second
think the
book.
second one might be good. I just didn't enjoy it enough to get on with the third one.
Because I did enjoy this, but there were sort of very unrealistic kind of expectations and
Yeah.
things that.
What about I wanted
Like,
to
I mean,
know
how could you, as like the younger sister, just say, I'm going to give up my entire life for my sister, and I'm going to watch the man I love who says he loves me. You know,
But there
and
are
he was
people
still
like that.
He was still having it on with her. Well, he's supposed to be undyingly.
But that
undyingly
loyalty-
in
Yeah.
love with her.
I think they established that loyalty between the sisters early in the book. And I kind
It's
of
a bit
understood that.
one-sided, though.
Oh, it always was one-sided. But
Yeah,
I know
her sister
I know
wasn't
people,
particularly nice either, was
No.
she?
But don't you know people even in our time of life that do that sort of thing? Who will devote their lives to caring for another member of the family and give up everything themselves? It's just part of some women. Interesting book. Well, I guess you're not going to go and read the second one. Look, if you've read this book, The Bronze Horseman, we'd love to get your comments. Maybe have a look on Facebook and just send us a little message, or you can email. We love to get your feedback and see whether you enjoyed the book as Jill and I did, or whether you thought it was vomitous, as Tash did. And we'd love to get some feedback from you. Also, if you'd like to suggest some books for us to have a look at, we would love that as well. That would be wonderful. So coming up after the break, because we're going to have a quick break, we're going to be having a look at this one, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I think you might enjoy too. See you soon. And now it's time to have a look at our classic for the week. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I think it was written in 1959 and published first in about 1965, around about then. I haven't got those dates quite right, but anyway, wonder if you've read it or maybe you've seen the film. Girls, this was an interesting, very interesting novel. What did you think of it, Jill?
I loved it.
Yeah?
I usually do like the classics, but I read it many years ago, so this was revisiting, and I just remembered how much I got out of it the first time.
Yeah.
A lot of issues.
Yes,
that,
covers a lot of issues, which we'll
Yes.
try and break down and go through some of those now. Did you enjoy it, Tash?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I had read it in high school, I reckon, as well.
we all did.
Yeah.
Yeah, many years ago.
And all I could remember from reading it then was that it was different to the movie.
Oh, yeah.
And so reading it again now, you can go, and I guess an older perspective as well, you know, you can go into a bit more depth of what's happening with the different characters. But yeah, no, I thought it was a great book.
It was written at a time, I found it fascinating that the author, Ken Kesey, we're not quite sure the pronunciation, I've heard different versions of it. He actually worked in a mental institution in California for some time on a sort of a night shift, a graveyard shift. So he had this fascination with authority. And you've got to remember too, this was a time in Australia, but also in America, it was a real time of anti-establishment. And that comes through here, that sense of breaking with authority, not wanting, what word I'm looking for? The power, not wanting the power of an authority over individuals. And I thought
that was strongly.
it was very strong, wasn't it?
A strong theme through the book.
Yeah.
Is that mechanisation and institutional kind of power and control over people.
Yeah. He was quite unorthodox. Well, unorthodox for now, but at the time was. He volunteered his services to work in psychological studies and things like that. Testing drugs.
He took drugs.
Okay.
He took
drugs.
But he did
Yeah.
that recreationally as well as
He probably
as part
did,
of
yeah.
That makes a lot of sense from what you read in the book, because there are some times where he's in a narrative and he sort of drifts off. And you
Maybe
think,
he's been flying as well.
Well, that fits in with the character though, because it's from the perspective of Chief, the big Indian.
The narrator.
And so you can see that it's like he's included those moments of schizophrenia in the book where you just kind of think, am I reading the right page still? Have I missed
yeah.
something?
Yeah,
you know,
I think that
where he
happened
sort
to
of
me a couple of
flips
times,
out
yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't think of that.
But
Maybe he
sometimes
was.
Chief was also under the influence of drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they kept everyone drugged.
Well, that's right.
You know, to keep them pacified.
Floating, wasn't
and-
he? He was always
Yes,
floating
yeah,
in the
yeah.
mist.
That really freaks me out. That I guess I have a bit of a. Yeah, it's that fear of being under the control of any sort
Well,
of.
they're more manageable that way,
Absolutely,
weren't they?
I know. But it was a time where they were deinstitutionalising a lot of people, and there was this real backlash against institutions like this. And let's face it, who would want to go there? I mean, I think it was hysterical.
But they were all voluntary.
The patients in
Yeah,
there.
they were
They
all voluntary.
admitted themselves voluntarily, and that's where McMurphy was different.
That's
Yes.
right.
Because
And that's what he couldn't
he was
understand.
going to be committed.
Yeah.
Yes,
and he didn't
committed to
realise
jail.
that until
Yes,
you
yes.
know
He had
part the way
6
through, and
months
he thought,
left.
"Oh my God, you know, I'm going to end up. I
Here
won't be able
forever.
to get out."
Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas the other guys had the choice of
Yes.
leaving,
Yeah, yeah.
but they chose to stay.
Yeah.
But it
They
was,
were
um,
institutionalised. They just
Well, wasn't
couldn't-
it something, I think I read somewhere else where a lot of people in those situations would have been homeless if they hadn't
Yeah.
Yes.
committed themselves. It was just a place for them to be safe and, you know, to be fed and looked after, I
They
guess.
became
Otherwise,
reliant on that.
that's right.
You know, like Nurse Ratched was, even though she was controlling them, they basically needed her as, you know, that, mother figure,
Yeah.
telling them what to do.
Well, I think somewhere in the book it says that she's an army nurse because when they do go to the other ward, the disturbed ward, there's a different nurse there who says something along the lines of, "We're not all like that.
Yes.
You know, none of us like to be in that ward. That's just the way she runs things. But she's been here so long, she has the power and the control over everybody."
Yeah.
And it's that codependence.
Yeah, isn't
you
it?
know, that
And
she
it was-
needed them and they needed her, really.
Yeah.
And her very smooth and careful forms of manipulation, where she, you know, it was almost she would just gently
passive-aggressive,
shame,
wasn't she?
gently shame people into doing something.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was the guilt thing there. I mean, she didn't really lay down the law as much as just quietly work her way through.
Manipulation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
manipulation. And I've particularly found that very, very sad with that young boy,
Billy.
who was a very timid. If you've read the book, a very timid, boyish young man who was in there.
Bertie.
Yeah.
Well, he came across as, you know, we discussed this before, of being about 19. And he was really 30.
Yeah,
He was-
but see, he'd been under
kept-
Mummy's thumb
yes,
as well
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
But he's, I keep going to say Jack
Stutterer.
Nicholson, the guy, the lead character, organises a couple of prostitutes to come in and give this boy a night of pleasure. And I suspect that he had never had a night of pleasure before
Well,
in
this
his
was
life.
to, you know, take his virginity.
Absolutely.
That was the whole plan.
Take the virginity
Yeah, yeah.
away. And of course he's caught and Nurse Ratched, you know, shames him. And it's the first time this boy actually stands up for himself and doesn't stutter. But then his undoing is when Nurse Ratched says, "I'm going to tell your mother."
Yes.
Just quietly shamed the boy, and he ended up taking his own life, which was so sad.
Yeah, that was a
I take
really
it all a
sad
bit to
Yeah.
heart, these books. You know,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
must admit,
yeah.
I want to go in there and make it all better and
Yeah.
tell people don't be so nasty. You know.
Yes.
Yeah,
No, she was awful.
she was an awful character.
And
Yeah.
Didn't she? She kept calling him McMurray instead of McMurphy.
Yes,
even though
yes.
she knew full well what his name
Yeah.
was. It
Yes,
was another
yes.
way of undermining
That's
him
right.
and
Yes.
getting under his skin.
Yeah.
But he
hoping-
was doing it to her too, wasn't he?
yeah,
He was
yeah.
antagonise her in any way he could. I haven't seen the movie, and I think I should. I think Jack Nicholson will do it really well.
They did change a lot in the movie from the book, which was a bit disappointing because in the book, all of the other people on the ward know that these women are coming that night
Oh, yeah.
for Billy. There's a
Yes.
big party. But in the movie, it's like they sneak them in and everybody's asleep and McMurphy wakes everybody up. There's lots of little different things, like
Yeah.
he gets everybody to pitch in to charter a boat. He gives the inmates a lot more power and I don't know what the word is, but they sort of start thinking for themselves a little bit more and they go to charter this boat, and in the movie they take them on a bus ride and take them, and they sort of hijack a boat. You know, there's a lot of differences.
They've changed it, yeah.
In the book, he really empowers them, and that's why it's so devastating for all of them when he's, you know, basically removed from the situation.
I know, literally.
Literally.
He's really the most unlikely hero, though.
Yeah, isn't he?
When you think about
He's an
it.
anti-hero, isn't he?
Yes, yeah. Because you know, initially, because he's such a character, you know, we're all sort of secretly, you know, applauding him. But when you think about, you know, he's actually a criminal. He's had himself committed because he says he's insane and he wants to get out of
prison.
Prison.
Trying to do an easy
Thinks it's
business,
easy
mate.
ride.
Easy,
Yeah.
you know, you get orange juice.
He's a
and
con man.
breakfast.
I know. But the power struggle between he and Ratchet is fascinating, except, of course, when she ends up sending him to the disturb ward, and that's it. He's
Yeah, then he has a frontal lobotomy and he's no longer him
anything.
anymore.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And the use of shock treatment, I mean, it's all those things are pretty scary, aren't they?
Yeah. But then, you know, you think all of this is through the eyes of Big Chief. You know.
Big Chief being the half Native American Indian, isn't
Yeah.
he?
Yeah.
Who is supposedly deaf and mute. But I think that was a very clever ploy.
Yeah.
To be an observer, but not expected to make a contribution. He was picking up all that was going on, and he's the narrator. Quite an interesting way
Yeah.
to get into the book.
And also, you know, there's that little bit of background about what the Americans did to the native Indians,
yes.
and bringing alcohol in and just devastating them,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Fabulous. Well, we hope you enjoyed One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and I hope you've enjoyed our chat as well. We're going to be back shortly, and we'll be talking about the book that we're going to be looking at next time. Wonder if you've read this classic, Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. I think I read it when I was 13. I'll be rereading this one. From next time, we're going to be having a different format with the book club. We'll be on more regularly, once every 4 weeks, but we'll only do one book each time. So every 4 weeks you'll see me and the girls, Tash and Jill and Maria when she's back. Next time it'll be Death on the Nile. 4 weeks after that it'll be another book. So you'll be seeing us more regularly, and we'll be talking more about books as well. Thank you for joining us on the book club. Thank you girls for coming in, and I've enjoyed talking to you about Paulina Simon's The Bronze Horseman and also One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. See you next time. And now it's back to Malcolm and Janice.
Thank you, beautiful Sue.
Thank you.
And girls.
And they are two very good books, Malcolm. I've read both of those. And
I've seen the movie.
do recommend.
Oh, okay. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes.
Seen the movie.
Jack Nicholson.
He was good in that. He was daft in that, but he was good. Janice, I just thought I'd mention, a couple of weeks ago we were talking with the tech guy about
Richard?
the internet. Yeah.
Yes.
And about really what you need to be sort of aware of if you're online and you're either surfing or you're receiving emails. I think there's an important rule of thumb that we should always remember with those things. A lot of older people are a little afraid of the internet, afraid of using it. You wouldn't open the front door to somebody you didn't know.
This
and
is
if
true.
you sort of use that logic with the internet, it's a good idea. Remember, you can find us on Facebook, and you can also send us an email if you want to. The thing to remember, though, is don't be afraid of the new technology. It's great to use. It can open the world to you, but just be conscious of asking people in.
Absolutely. But there are ways of learning about it all, and so that you don't need to
Like
worry.
at your local library.
Absolutely.
Is a good place.
Good
Until
place.
next time we see you, keep yourself nice till then.
See you then. Bye.